Hey guys, it's Kaylee and welcome back to Hippie in a Suit, where I talk about sustainability because I dream of a world where billionaires use their money to solve world hunger and not to buy Twitter. Hello, you beautiful people. I am so excited. This is a special video because I just hit 5,000 subscribers. Yay! I'm kind of blown away by the reaction and response to this channel. I know for some channels 5,000 is not a big deal, but for me, when I started this, I just did it to share some of the stuff I care about. So the fact that 5,000 people are interested is a really big deal. And I've been getting so many questions in my comments and on my Instagram that I thought what I would do to celebrate this important milestone is mix it up and do a little Ask Me Anything. So the idea today is I'm going to answer a few of the questions that have come in. I've kind of grouped them in three big categories: questions about the channel, questions about the content of the channel, so about sustainability or working in sustainability, and personal questions. So without further ado, let's dive into my first ever Ask Me Anything. Okay, so let's start with the questions about the channel. So I have them on my phone here, so if I'm looking down, that's why. The first one is, why did you start the channel? So there's kind of two big reasons. I never really was a big into YouTube. I didn't really follow it when I was younger. I watched like a few funny videos that went viral, but I wasn't like watching it regularly. But of course, during the pandemic, I think everyone was looking for different kinds of entertainment, and I started to get really into YouTube and loving it and just so impressed by all the creativity. And around this time, as many people also had in the pandemic, I started to realize that I was kind of missing a creative outlet or several creative outlets. And so between, getting into YouTube, needing a creative outlet, and then the final thing, which was recognizing that there wasn't a lot of sustainability content on YouTube, I decided, hey, why don't I go for it? It could be a good mix of the things I like to do. I used to be in theater and do public speaking, don't really do it so much anymore. So I thought, hey, it's creative, it's something different. And there's not a lot of content about the broader sustainability space on YouTube. There's a lot on climate change and a lot on kind of like zero waste living, but there isn't as much on the big kind of political systems that shape these things. So that's what I thought would be interesting, and I've been having a ton of fun doing it. So the second question is, what does your channel name mean? So actually I've owned the URL for Hippie in a Suit for like 10 years. And the reason is, when I first started my career in sustainability, I really felt like I was kind of in the middle. Like, I had a lot of friends who were in corporate, like oil and gas, hardcore business, who thought I was this like huge hippie. And then I was an environmentalist and working in the environmental movement, and a lot of the people who were more like in the activism space felt that I was a little bit too corporate or a little bit too buttoned up, like in a suit. And so I kind of liked this idea of hippie in a suit, of the two things coming together, where you can care about these issues, but you may choose to tackle them from inside the systems. So that is where the name comes from. Next question is, do you plan to have merch? So this is something I've thought a lot about. I definitely won't have merch until I hit 10,000 subscribers, because for those of you who know YouTube, you can't attach it to your channel formally until you have 10,000 subscribers. So I think I will consider it when I hit that milestone. But the other reason is I really want to make sure that whatever merch I potentially produce is sustainable. And I need to do a whole lot more research on that. Like, what are the labor practices that go into some of these, organizations who create merch? What consumption would be appropriate? Like, I'm not sure I would want to do t-shirts, but maybe something more like portable coffee mugs or water bottles, things that people can use to reduce waste in other areas. I'm not sure. I have to think about it, but generally I don't want to promote consumerism. So let's see. I think yes, but I have to do a whole bunch more research before I would feel comfortable entering into that arena. The next question is, do you plan to have guests? So I have thought about having guests, and I think I will at some point to kind of spotlight different careers that exist in the sustainability space. But at this point, no, I'm not going to have guests for at least another year. I do want to finish my SDG series, the deep dives, and then I want to create a series of much shorter, like 3-minute SDG videos. And then also, of course, talk about a whole other range of topics. So I do think at some point I'll bring in guests, but not in the short run. And it would be a change in the format and how I produce. So I'd have to think about the logistics of how that would work. But I think I will at some point. Do you plan to offer career coaching services like interview prep or reviewing of CVs, that sort of thing? So this is a pretty simple answer for me. No, I have never worked in HR in international organizations or NGOs. So when I tell you my experiences, they very much are just that. They're my experiences. And I don't feel comfortable giving advice to others, especially for a fee, because I couldn't make any guarantees. So what I will try to do is create as many videos as I can that have general advice that apply to as many people as possible so that they can adapt it for themselves. But I myself won't be doing any kind of like specific career coaching. Oh, good one. What do you like most about you doing YouTube, and what do you like the least? So what I love doing most is actually two things. First, I absolutely love the creative process. I find it so fun to script a video, record it, edit, look for video clips, put in music. You know, that's really what I wanted when I started this channel, was a creative outlet. So I really love that process. And then I love seeing when it's helpful to people. I love the comments that people leave that are positive. I think it's really fun to see that other people care about these issues. And so I just love that dimension of it. And then what I like the least, two things. One is that I just don't have the capacity to respond to everyone who leaves a comment. I do work full time. I think I've mentioned this in my videos, sometimes more than full time. So, you know, I barely have time to get the videos together, let alone answer really specific questions in the comments. And so that's been kind of hard because I know people are asking these questions very much in earnest and wanting information, and I just don't have time to answer everyone. My inbox is full. I am hoping maybe this summer I'll get to answer more of the emails and comments that come in, but it is tough to balance. So that's been kind of hard. And then of course, it's, you know, trolls in the comments is always discouraging. For me, it's discouraging because I think sustainability is so important. So to see people being so skeptical of it does really suck. It makes me sad. Like, I want people to be pushing for this important thing in our society, but I understand that it's been corrupted in some ways by some organizations. So that's been a bit hard to see, but generally I really like the process. I wouldn't keep doing it if I didn't. Oh, I also don't love doing the research, but I now work with Kenza, who has been helping me with the research, and that's been really good. So yeah, I love the process. It's been a lot of fun, and there's just, you know, a few haters that I have had to learn to deal with. And what are your hopes for the channel? I mean, my only hopes really, I don't like have a big goal of how much I'd like to earn or how many followers I'd like to have. I don't really have goals like that. I just really want to help people. I want people to get something out of the information. When I first started this channel, I really was picturing the typical person watching it, like a university student who's prepping a paper and just needs a big high-level overview, or someone who's thinking about changing careers and wants to get into these spaces. That's what I was thinking about. So if I'm helping those type of people, I'm really excited. I also do hope to maybe become a little bit more professional in my production, maybe work with some sort of animator to make cooler infographics, that sort of thing. But I just do this on weekends, on my spare time, so one step at a time. And yeah, that's my hopes, is just that it continues to be a lot of fun and that it continues to help people out in their journey to sustainability. Okay, now moving on to more content-related questions about sustainability and careers. So the first one is it possible to consume and be sustainable at the same time? This is a tough and thorny question, and I think the kind of simple answer is unfortunately no. I don't think under the current economic system we have that any consumption is sustainable. And if any of you watch Tiffany Ferg, you know, she always says that. I think she uses ethical, but you know, under capitalism, there's no such thing as ethical or sustainable consumption. And I mean, I think that is the case. However, I think it would be very disingenuous to not say that we should all try and consume as sustainably as we can. So whether that means using less plastic, shopping more locally, supporting local businesses, organic food where you can, whatever that may look like for you, traveling less, buying less when you buy something, making sure it gets recycled or reused, fixing things if they're broken, signing up to, libraries, or in Switzerland, they have these things called ludotheks, which are like toy libraries or tool libraries. If you can do those kind of things, it really does save a lot. And I think it's an excellent way to lower your own impact. But generally, the systems change is needed. And I do also just want to note that consumption is also not applied in an equitable manner. So for some people, fast fashion, the cheapest food, all those things are all that's available to them. And so it's so important that we push back on the systems and not so much the individuals, because everyone is just trying to do their best in a lot of ways. What do you think of nuclear energy? So this comes from one of my friends back in Western Canada. I think it's absolutely essential to a low carbon future. And I know that's like sometimes a bit controversial because, of course, of the nuclear waste issue. So, but I just don't see how we get there without it. However, I do think there's a little bit too much emphasis placed on it. If you look at the IEA's net zero report, they put nuclear up to only about 8% of the total electricity mix, even in a net zero world. So I think the focus needs to be on renewables, but nuclear can be a very good baseload option and is something we need to consider. We need to consider it all. Anything that's zero carbon, we need to consider and figure out where it fits in the mix. How effective is working in an NGO as a stepping stone towards working in an intergovernmental organization or the UN? So I think it's a great way to get a foot in the door, because you'll have interesting experience. Maybe you'll even partner or work with the UN to some degree. So I think it is a helpful and useful stepping stone. I think there's other ways as well. Policy work, research work, working in a government, all those things, as you can see in my education and experience video, are helpful. So there's no one path. There's no single way to do it. There's lots of different ways to do it, but I do think an NGO can be a helpful way to get in. That's how I did. So I think it can be good. How are you supposed to gain experience when no job in the field is designed for an entry level? And this is that whole paradox we hear about. Every new job is asking for like 10 years experience. How do I even do that? So for me, I think there's kind of two ways to go about this. And this is certainly how I did. So I think there is getting volunteer or extracurricular experience in sustainability or the area that you're interested in. That's kind of a way to signal your interest. It could be also additional education, like doing a course or volunteering in an organization, something like that that shows you are interested in the topic of sustainability. And then second to that, I do think work in the field you want to work in, even if it's not in the sustainability realm, because if you have that experience, it makes you a better candidate to move into a sustainability role. And I'll explain exactly what I mean. When I was working in the energy industry, I was in a business development role. I was like in a hardcore business role, and I knew I wanted to get into sustainability, and I knew I wouldn't last in like the traditional energy role. But I couldn't find those roles. There wasn't as many on the market. They all required experience. So I continued working in the business side. And then on the side at university, I did a whole bunch of things around sustainability in my volunteer capacity. So when a job came up that was sustainability in the energy space, I was a great candidate because I knew the energy space and I had the sustainability side on my volunteer roles, and therefore I got the job. So I think if you don't have like dedicated work experience, look for some sort of volunteer role or additional coaching or additional training, and then continue to work in the field you want to work in, because it's probably the best way to get your foot in the door. Okay, the question I get the most out of any other question is, if I have XYZ experience, will I get a job in the UN? And this comes from Engineers, lawyers, nurses, biologists, even veterinarians have asked me this question. And I mean, the first thing I would direct you to is my video on UN education and experience. But beyond that, what I would say is there's just so many roles in the UN. So you're going to have to do the legwork to find one that might be well suited to what you do. And if it is a big dream of yours, and let's say your experience is a little bit technical, you might need to find a middle stepping stone towards the policy realm, the intergovernmental space in order to get there. But so there's no, general answer to this question of, will I get a job? So just have a look and do your research and make sure that you're being realistic about where your skills can apply. All right, now just a few personal questions, and I'll try and make this part really short. So what is your nationality and where do you live? So I've mentioned this in a few of my videos, but I am Canadian. I'm from Western Canada. I grew up in a small town of like 2,500 people, and I've lived in Switzerland for almost 6 years now. So I've been here for quite a while. Which languages do you speak? I obviously speak English, et je parle français. So this leads into the next question, which is, do you have a partner? I do. My partner, Nico, only speaks French. So it was a huge push for me and a great practice to have him and to learn French alongside our relationship. Do you have any siblings? I have a brother who also happens to be a YouTuber. He is a gaming channel called It's Tizzle, so you can check him out there if you happen to be into Destiny. But yeah, he's great, and it's been really fun doing this whole YouTube journey with him. It's made it a lot more rewarding. What was your career path? This is another one I get asked a lot, and I will do a full video on this. But really, really quickly, I'll just give you the Coles notes. I started my career in the energy industry super young. I was only 19 because there was a huge boom at the time. I worked in the energy industry and then was able to transition into a role that was focused on climate change in the energy space. But at the same time, I was working on a volunteer endeavor, which eventually became an NGO that I co-founded with 2 friends, and I ran that for a number of years. Then after running it, I decided I wanted to understand the intergovernmental space, the international space, and so I went to the UN for an internship. After my internship, I did not get hired into the UN right away. So I actually went to a think tank, and in that think tank, I started working on sustainable development. And very shortly after starting there, we formed a partnership with the UN, and I was seconded into what's called the SDG Lab. So I worked on sustainable development goals in the context of the UN, but also a think tank, which was a ton of fun. And that role eventually evolved into a more of a focus on finance. And now I'm working fully in sustainable finance. So that's like the big picture. I will do a video on my career path and on career paths in general, because they can be very meandering. And certainly my experience has been, it's just been, one opportunity has led to the next. And then the last question is, what do you do for fun? So I find YouTube really fun. So I do YouTube for fun, but generally I really like to hike. I like to either do boot camp or go running. So active in that way. I also love to travel. It's actually one of the reasons I decided to move to Europe in the first place, because it's so accessible to so many cool cultures. I love good food and wine, so I like to also travel and try new cuisines. And I love theater and musical theater. I don't really do it anymore, but I love to follow it and I love to watch it, and I love the talent that you can see on stage. So those are some of the things I do for fun. And I think that's it. That's where I'll wrap up my first Ask Me Anything. I don't even know how many people will watch this, but it's really cool to hit 5,000 subscribers. And I just want to thank you all so much for following along and for being so positive about the channel. And as always, I'll see you in the next one. And until then, keep fighting the good fight. Bye.